Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time to log on and watch this. And this is the first time we've done Timothy's class like this. I know, but it's a good time to be creative and figure out new ways to hear from the Lord and encourage each other despite the circumstances. And no matter what's going on around the world, the Lord is with us, the Lord's for us, and the darker it gets, the more his light shines. So I'm convinced that God is really going to do something special for us in this season. So let's get into it. So if we take a look at the life of Joshua, we can get some relevant points for what we're going through today. And I'd just like you to take a look at Joshua. We're going to look at Joshua 1, Joshua 5, and Joshua 10. So if you can get your Bibles, your paper Bibles, though I'm not watching you, so you know. But Joshua 1, let's go there together. Okay, Joshua's a new leader, and he's the leader after Moses. Can you imagine being the leader after Moses? I mean, no pressure, right? But he's the leader, and he's got a huge task in front of him. And this is what God says to him. Joshua 1. We can turn there, and he says, in verse 9, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I think that's really important for us today, that don't be terrified, don't be discouraged and give up hope, that the Lord is with you wherever you go, whatever you face. And then if we turn to Joshua 5, so stay in Joshua in your paper Bibles, Joshua 5, Joshua's now led the Israelites across the Jordan River, and they're going in to take the promised land. And they come across this huge obstacle. They are facing a city, Jericho. There's a huge wall. There's armies in Jericho. There's loads of people there. They've got weapons. They're equipped. And here these people are, and they're in the minority, like they're not the strongest in comparison, and they've got to face this. And so I just want to pull out some things that the Lord said to them that could be meaningful for us. So we're facing an obstacle that the world's never experienced before. We've never been, well, not the world. There have been plagues before, but in our lifetime, we've never experienced this before. It's an obstacle we're learning. We're learning as we go along and trying to be safe, and so God was with them in this time, and then so they're facing this obstacle, and God appears to Joshua. So in Joshua 5 verse 13, now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, are you for us or for our enemies? Isn't that sometimes what you want to ask God? Like, are you for me? And I feel like the Lord just wants to remind us that he's with us and he's for us. But in verse 14 it says, neither, he replied, but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come. Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, what message does my Lord have for his servant? So many people believe that this commander of the Lord's army, when Joshua fell on his face, he was falling on his face because it wasn't an angel, it was actually Jesus appearing to him. Jesus before he came to walk on this earth. So we call that a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus. And so so he sees Jesus, and then Jesus has come to give him a message. And the first thing his response is, what message does my Lord have for his servant? And I think that's an important thing for us as well, is to go to go to Jesus. We have access to him all the time, wherever we are, and say, God, in this season, what are you saying to us? What do you want to say? Because it was the presence of God that was going to make the difference. So what message does my Lord have? And then he waited and he listened. And first, the commander of the Lord's army replied, take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy. And Joshua did so. So we go to chapter 6. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. So that I find really interesting, because here's this big, powerful city, and here these people are coming out of the desert, and they don't have the same equipment and experience that these people have, but they're shut up because they're afraid of the Israelites. And sometimes I think we give the enemy too much credit. The enemy is more afraid of us than we are of him, and he's afraid of us realizing the power of God inside of us. So we don't need to be afraid. We need to be wise and caring and loving towards each other. Social distancing, not shaking hands, but we don't need to panic and be afraid, because God is with us. So then the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in the front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have all the people give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the people will go up, every man straight in. Okay, so how would you feel if this was a strategy given to you? Like, we're going to face an army. What you're going to do is go for a long walk and come home. And every day just walk around this place once. And then on the final day, walk around it 7 times, blow some horns, and this wall, shout, and this wall will come down. It wasn't a logical strategy, but they had to be obedient to God. And it looked even foolish to the people around them, but they had to be obedient to the Lord. And so it's important for us to get a strategy from God. And what does he want us to do? And the ark of the Lord, they were to carry the ark of the Lord, the covenant, around them as they walked. And that was symbolic for the presence of God. And that's what makes the difference, is that God is with us. Get into God's presence, guys. Spend time in worship. Spend time with the Lord. What is he saying to you? And then they went into blowing the horns. That's praise and worship. And that's what we've been singing all year about. My weapon is a melody. So go and praise Jesus. That's how we have victory over our fears and our discouragement, is getting into worship and praise. So I just want to encourage you guys that Joshua faced an impossible obstacle, and we might face something that looks bigger than what we can handle. But guess what? He is for us is more than who is against us, and God is with us. So we don't need to be afraid. God gave them a strategy, and we need to get a strategy from the Lord and hear from him. And the church has felt like we need to honor authority and not have gatherings over 50. But what is God's strategy for you while you're at home? What can you be praying about? You know, the church is starting a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week prayer, and we're going to have a calendar, and you can sign up for a slot. And I'm really encouraging you guys to be a part of that. Pick a half-hour slot and be praying for our nation. Be praying for the world, because even now you can be making a difference. So be spending time with the Lord, and then share with us what you think God is saying. We're going to be sending out devotionals as a church to everybody, and if you have a word from the Lord, maybe that would be encouraging to someone else, and then we can send that out. And even though their strategy didn't make logical sense, or may have even looked foolish, it was important that they worshipped and that they were obedient to the Lord. And so worship, guys. Keep your eyes on the Lord, and realize that God is with you. His presence is with you. So 3 questions for you to go home and think about. And firstly, what is God saying to you personally in this time? Secondly, how can God use you to be an encouragement to someone else in this time? And then thirdly, what are you speaking out? Because when they walked around the wall, everybody had to keep silent until they were ordered to shout and declare God's promises. And I have a theory. I think they were told to be quiet so that they wouldn't be complaining and moaning and groaning. And in times like this, when we can't meet together, we can't play games together, life looks different, it's easy to get frustrated and be complaining and moaning. But actually, what are you speaking out? Be intentional. Are you speaking out life and praying for the nation and blessing our nation and encouragement to the people around? Or are you speaking out negative things and complaining, moaning, and groaning? Which one will have a better effect? And so, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this and to read the word together. And even though it's an unusual way for us to be communicating, I'm excited to see what the Lord is going to do even in the circumstances, and what creative ways we can use to encourage each other and stay connected and share the word. You're awesome young people, and it's really a privilege to be doing life with you. See you soon.